So you can think of the effect of climate on nature in two different ways. So one is just the kind of long-term trend of more CO2 in the atmosphere, leading to warming and other kind of weather effects. And that is something that affects the way in which species can exist in particular areas. So you might get range shifts, so you might get things like butterflies moving further north, for example, where it's warmer. You might also get phenological change, which is where the springs come earlier, for example, or the springs might come earlier for the plants, but not for the migratory birds, so you get a disconnect. So that's the kind of more long-term chronic effects. And then you can think about the short-term effects of extreme events.
We need to understand the impacts of climate change at all these scales, from the individual species through to the whole ecosystem. But I think particularly that ecosystem level understanding is particularly important, because that's where everything integrates and sums up to an overall effect. For example, some of our work in the last decades has looked at the Amazon rainforest and how it's being affected by a warming and drying climate. And what we're finding at the level of the ecosystem, the trees are vulnerable to drought, and that's feeding through to the entire ecosystem being more vulnerable to fire and causing a forest that was previously a sink of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to turn into a further source of carbon dioxide.
So we have these two effects on extreme events that will have catastrophic effects on nature in a short time in a particular place, and then the long-term effects that's going to change our entire ecosystems.